Welcome to more art at Jantastic Studio. Today's card is Mama Elephant's Wish Upon a Star on Lawn Fawn's Magic Picture Changer die and add-on. The long die is the die that will make your pocket and your outside picture. You need to trace around the window to make a place and to show you where to stamp your stamp. I also trace around the outside so I know where to put my die back once I stamp and color my image. The second die is the second picture that you're going to see what it's going to change into. So again, I have to mark the outside to show where to put this die back on the page and to mark the lines so that I know where to stamp in the window and not get it outside the window. I use a Sizzix sticky grid sheet 6 by 8.5 on my tonic stamp maker so that I don't have to use the magnets. I hate the magnets. So I'm making sure to place my stamp inside my window and using Gina K Amalgam Ink. And I didn't wipe my hand over this new stamp, so it didn't take the ink the best, so I had to go back a second time. And this is just because the stamp is new. So there's nothing wrong with the stamp, it's just new. I always put a little pressure on to make sure I get my ink there. And this is my second window, and I'm putting a sentiment, year 1 in a million, and a stamp. So I'm putting them together, and then I remember to wipe the stamp with my hand to get some body oil on it so that it will take the ink better. It's just the plastic is just real new. And I got a little bit heavy on that one section, so I want to restamp it. Again, there's just a couple of places that got missed. And the word R didn't seem to pick up the ink really well. Try to get a little more pressure in that area, but I had to add more ink. Just, that's the way it was. Okay, so now I'm going to use my kneadable eraser to erase the window pencil marks. You really don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I leave it just faint enough, and you're not going to be able to see it, but leave it just faint enough that I can see it, but it won't show up on the final card. Okay, now I'm making a mask, and I put my masking paper over a cardstock and then cut out the dies for the stamps that I use so they won't get color on them when I do the background. Tape it on, and then I use my Vagabond 2 to cut the dies out. I use a piece of typing paper under my top one because my cutting boards are just mangled from all the stamps I do. Now I take the tape off, the masking tape off of the cut and lay it over on top of my stamp. And I actually tore that one as I took it off a little bit where the tail is, but it doesn't make any difference. It sticks really well and it covers really well. So now I'm ready to do my backgrounds. Now I used my Distress ink, and I'm not going to do a super even coating on my skies. I like to have a little dark here, a little light here. It looks more natural rather than the same blue all over. Normally I'd add a cloud, but these stamps are on a cloud, so there's your cloud. It's already there. And you just got to go past where the window mark is, so the sky is in the window. I've taped a plastic bag on top of the box I keep my inks in, and it's just easy to wipe off and clean once you're done. Works a treat. Okay, so now I'm going to peel the mask off, and I just love it. I love the reveal. I don't know, there's something very satisfying about seeing what you've uncovered. And then I store it on my package so I can use it again, because those masks will work more than once. Now I'm using my pencil lines to set my die back onto the cardstock, just to make sure I was in that window. With words, sometimes you get awfully close to the edge. I'm using the Chow marker, Amethyst and Mallow. Amethyst is the dark one, Mallow's the light one. And then I was going to put some pink cheeks in there, but my purple was really dark, so I actually pinked the whole thing so that it would lighten the purple up a bit. And that pink is Pale Pink RV10. All this is listed below. Now I have to go fill in the ears and get all the pink spots on my little bunnies done. I want to have a pink nose, pink cheeks. Now this is going to be a white bunny, so I'm using my cool gray markers, a C3 for the dark outline, and then I'll use C00 to blend it in. I really like those tips on the classic markers, the really fine point tips. I will buy those nibs and replace those nibs on the bold mark slot side on my markers, Copic markers, because I just don't like the Marcellotti flat marker at all, and I don't use it. I never use it unless I'm desperate and have ruined my tip, but I just am not happy with it, so I'll change it out. Now I put the dark lines basically where the shadows would be, and now I'm adding the light gray, the C00, to blend it in. Boy, you really got to use a lot of ink to blend these Copics in. It's not like the old time markers that you used to use, and you've got to get it pretty saturated to cause it to blend. And I'm using Neenah Solar Pressed, Solar White cardstock, and it's cover stock. Excuse me, this is cover stock, and it blends well. It doesn't bleed unless you get really heavy with the ink. And now I'm going to Pale Porcelain Blue, B000, just to give that cloud just a little bit of color so it just doesn't look like a white blob hanging there. That's my go-to blue, is that Pale Porcelain Blue. I just love it. I even bought refills. Okay, so I've cut it out now, and I'm going to stick it together. Sometimes I have an issue with getting the tape off of my cover stock when I'm pulling the die off. I just got to go slow. If you try to hurry up, you'll tear your paper. So now you're going to fold at the line, and on those lines, they're tiny, but they're a little bit over 1/8 of an inch, because you can put 1/8 of an inch double stick tape on there, and it doesn't stick out. The gooey part doesn't stick out. So the die is really, really well made for putting together, which there's a lot of dies that aren't. So, I mean, this is a good die. I really like it. I'm using Suquine double stick tape, and that's that Scor Pal Scor tape. I really like it. It sticks better than any of the other tapes that I've used so far, and it's just good quality. And in Texas, you really need a good tape to hold your cards together, because our heat is so bad. If you send stuff in the summer, it can come unstuck. So I'm just serious about the double stick tape I use. And to me, Suquine makes the best. So I'm peeling it off and now laying it down, and that looks kind of like a redundancy, but what you're doing is making a big enough gap for that second sheet of paper to fit in there. I got a little bit of, I guess I moved my hand, but I got a little bit of the tape outside the line there, and I put the powder on it to stop it from sticking. Now I'm going to lay tape back over the top that I just folded over so that I can tape the pocket shut once I get it assembled. And again, it had these little edges are really well made. They're wide enough that you can get the tape in. Sometimes you can't get the tape in a spot. And using the powder as a dry lubricant so that everything moves easily. Now the trick to this is you tuck these little pieces in the piece behind it, the inside of the pocket. And then you make sure it stays in that little track. Again, I'm adding a little bit more dry lubricant. And I'll end up refilling that with arrowroot because I don't want talcum in my house. And I think that's a talcum type powder. It smells like it anyway. Actually smells kind of good, but I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure that fold is good. And now I'm going back to take the tape off so that pocket, it'll make the pocket. Now, before you get that little tab on the top, you got to make sure you don't let that slider card slide too far down because there's a little piece you put at the top to stop it. So I die cut the little stop for the slider, and you got to be careful. The little letters, when they fall out, you got to save that little piece to put in the center of your P. And you tape from corner to corner on that so that you don't mess with the mechanisms. So pay careful attention where you're putting your double stick tape on that. And there's a little notch at the top where the guide slides in and out, and you match that. That way you know which piece is the top or the bottom. Have a little bit of white showing there. Not happy about it, but I'll fix it later. And I'm gluing down my little tab there. And see, the end of the P is the little hole in the P is not filled, so got to put a little bit of glue. And I got too much glue, which happens sometimes. So I just take a little out. Get my tweezers and find that little bitty piece to go in the center of the P. And it just makes it look right. And now I've got my 8.5 by 5.5 sheet, and I hand fold these because if I use a Scor pal, the gap is a little bit wide, and sometimes the ends don't meet, and that drives me nuts. I want my ends to meet. So I've decided I'm going to use this paper, and I think it looks better going sideways than up and down. So one edge of that paper has like a gummed edge on it. So that's the thing you need to cut off first. And this is Echo Park's Dots and Stripes, and I really like it. I think it's great. So I did the 4.5 cut first, and now the 5.5 to fit my note card. And make sure you have it facing the right way because I've done it backwards before. And I take my ATG gun, and I probably use way too much tape, but again, I'd rather overdo than underdo because I put a lot of time in these cards and I want them to last. And then I set from the outside edge there towards the fold. And again, I have a little white mark, and I'm not real happy about it, but it just happens. Now you can't set that directly onto the card because you got to be able to put your fingers behind it. So I pull out my gigantic roll of 3M tape, the foam tape, and give it 3 good strips of it. Again, overkill, but that's my middle name, I guess. I really like the combination of the dots and stripes. I give it a little extra push with the bone folder just to make sure it's set down correctly. And line it up with more space at the top so I make the sides and the bottom even distance apart and leave that little bit at the top so that you have room to pull. And now I've got to fix that little gap there, the white gap. Looks like it's dark, but it'll dry exactly the same color. And the reason why I know is because I tried it on the little stripe piece you see to the side of me, just to make sure that it's the right color. And then I went back, did it again, and it will dry the exact same color as the paper. Amazing. Love it. And there you go. Little magic picture changer. Isn't it cute? I love it. And it'll work for Easter too. Thanks so much for watching.